Hi, I'm Lori and I love books. Today's tea is by Genier World of Teas, and it's a luxury black tea. I got this in my Classics of the Month Club subscription. It's really windy outside right now, so hopefully that doesn't interfere too much with the sound. So, as you may or may not know, I read M on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie earlier this month, and when I was looking to see which versions of movies I had seen prior, I realized there was not just the two versions I had previously seen, but there were actually 4 versions, and so I thought I would watch them all in order of release date and then rank them based on what I think is the most successful to the least successful. Spoiler alerts, because I will be talking about the ending of some of them. And then also content warning, because they all, of course, deal with the M on the train. They all deal with the Daisy Armstrong kidnapping and the results of that. But a couple of them have additional triggering aspects to them. So, please be forewarned. And I do have some notes because I wanted to make sure I was saying things accurately. So the first movie is the oldest, and it's from 1974, and it's from Paramount Pictures. And it's 127 minutes long. It's rated PG and stars Albert Finney as Poirot. It starts off showing the news articles of Daisy Armstrong's kidnapping, and then it on the screen says 5 years later, and then it transitions to Poirot and the M on the Train story. The second one is from 2005, and it's from Artistry Home Entertainment. So it was a TV movie. It's not rated, and it's 100 minutes long and stars Alfred Molina as Poirot. This one starts with a very yellow police car going through the streets with lights and sirens, and then it transitions to Poirot solving an M of a belly dancer. And the owner of the establishment is a female, and Poirot and her are romantic with each other, and she suggests he not go back to England and stays with her, and they get married, and he's like, oh no, and leaves. So they break up. Let's see. The third version is a TV series, and it's from RLJ Entertainment in 2009. I did not see a rating for this one, and it's 90 minutes long, and it's a series of TV shows, and stars David Suchet. And then the last, and I'll be discussing the start of that film later in this video because it does have the triggering aspects to it. So the last film is the 20th Century Fox version from 2017. It's 114 minutes long, and let's see, I didn't write down the rating. PG-13, and it stars Sir Kenneth Branagh as Poirot. This version starts with a child running through the streets to bring Poirot a couple eggs that are of equal size, and then the first set were not accurate, so the kid has to run back and find 2 more eggs. It reminded me a lot of the scene in Avengers with the little girl and Hulk going through the streets and him meeting Natalie for the first time. So it like just really reminded me of that. I'm like, is that a common thing that happens with little children running through streets? But it was cute. It was a nice kind of silly start to the film before it gets into serious content. So for 4th place, the one I liked the least is this version. the one from the series. I don't recommend this to anybody. This is the one I was talking mostly about the content warning for, because it starts with an Poirot confronting an officer for committing an M, and then the officer takes from another officer from their holster, and then uses that item to end their life. And it was very graphic. And then it transitions to a second scene where Poirot, Colonel Arbuthnot, and Miss Debenham are in the streets, and they're watching a woman being chased and stones thrown at her because she supposedly committed adultery. And so two very violent visuals at the very start of the movie, and neither of those are in the book. So it's just added violence. And I don't think it added anything up to the story. And this version also has Poirot as being Catholic. Ratchet also is religious. In the book, this book, I did not see any mention of Poirot being religious at all. It is a series, so it's possible that's in other books of the series, but this is the one I've read, so I don't know that to be true. And then also none of the other movies have anything about him being religious. So now I'm going to go talk about the ending of this, because that also, I think, really changes the story. So it ends with Poirot giving the two choices of there being a random person that did the M that just got on the train and got off right away. Or the second version, which is that the 13 people were conspiring and they all participated in the M. And in this version, Poirot is very upset at the other passengers for committing vigilante justice and for taking matters into their own hands, and then it turns into a theological debate of what is right and what is wrong from a Catholic perspective. And it not only changes the ending, it changes Poirot's character, because Poirot in the book wants them to choose the first choice. He wants it to be this, at least that's how I read it, he wants them to pick that it's just this random person and none of these other people get in trouble for doing something that he understands, if not, he's not necessarily approving and endorsing it, but he does understand where they're coming from. So, because it's so vastly different from the book, and it's also so, has so many extra violent things, I don't recommend this to anybody, and that's why I picked it for my fourth choice. So my third choice is this one, and I do recommend the other three. So this one is a bit of an odd version. It takes place in 2001. So, and then the first thing you notice that it is in modern times is there's one of the characters wearing jeans. I think that was Miss Debenham. There's airplane travel for the masses, so there's no reason for them to go on the train other than they want to. There's laptops and satellite internet, which Poirot uses, I think, twice. The letter to Ratchet, that is one of the clues for Poirot, is actually on a VHS tape, so it definitely does place it at this time. And some of the characters have different jobs. I think Colonel Arbuthnot is not a colonel, he's a computer designer. So it is definitely a part of its time. And the one actor I recognized in it is Meredith Baxter. She starred in Family Ties with Michael J. Fox, which is a TV series. And so she plays Mrs. Hubbard. So I did recognize her. This one has a very plain-looking train because obviously it's got probably a lower production value than the other ones. But, you know, for a TV movie, I thought it was a very good version. There is no snow in this one, though. The train stops because of a rock slide, and I'm not saying that wouldn't stop a train. It's just the rock slide looks tiny, so I'm thinking that if this was real life, that they would probably just hit the rock slide as opposed to stopping in time, and then you'd have a train derailment rather than a train stopping. So because there's no snow, there's nothing keeping the person who commits the M on the train, which that is one of the big parts of the story, is that Poirot knows that the person didn't leave. Let's see. And then this version ends with Poirot doing a voiceover saying what happens to each of the other passengers after they leave the train. And then the young lady that he was romantic with at the beginning of the movie is also there on the platform waiting for him, and they get back together. And it was a kind of a very small romantic aspect, but it was a very entertaining one, and the actors did have good chemistry with each other. So even though this is a much more odd version, it, I think, was still very entertaining to watch. So then, for second place, I picked, this one, the most recent, which also stars Johnny Depp as Ratchet and Michelle Pfeiffer as Mrs. Hubbard, I believe. This one had great production value. It had a lot of establishing shots. The scenery was gorgeous. The actors were probably the most believable. I do have a little trouble believing Johnny Depp as a bad guy at this point. I watched him growing up. I just, like, it wasn't that he was playing the part wrong. It's just hard for me to imagine him as a bad guy. This one, I think, stuck to the story fairly well. But they also have, at the ending, Poirot puts a gun down and says that they have to do an M on him because he can't keep this a secret the way that Monsieur Book could. And so it was like an added little dramatic piece, but it doesn't, I don't want to give too much of the ending away, but it makes it a little different, but not so different that I disliked this version. So that means my number one version was the one from 1974. Colonel Arbuthnot actually was played by Sean Connery, sorry, which was it's one of his younger roles, so he just has that voice and has that commanding presence, so it was very entertaining. Angela Bassett also plays one of the characters. I only know her once she was a more mature actress, so seeing her young, it was, I don't really recognize her as a young lady or a young actress. But Sean Connery always has that voice. This train just looked opulent. It looked so gorgeous. Like, the train had wooden paneling that looked like it had alabaster inlays. The crystal was like the heavy crystal. It just felt like luxury. It felt like they were really in the life of luxury on this train. And I think that just made it that much more pleasant. And then it stuck to the story very much. So then the other versions. And it just, I think, was the closest to the book. And it was also the most entertaining because the actors kind of had that balance of not seeming guilty but also trying to act innocent. Poirot seemed like he was focused, like it was about the crime. It was about the M. It wasn't about him. It wasn't about them. It was just about solving this thing, like a mind game that he was working through, a mind puzzle. So the fact that all of those kind of worked together just made this the most enjoyable. I felt it was the closest to the book, and it is my number one. So those were my picks. Would you have rated them differently or ranked them differently? Let me know in the comments what you thought. Would love to hear. And until next time, I hope you have a lovely time reading or watching a movie about a wonderful book. Bye!